Hey there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Australian Small Business Show. Matt, how are you?
G'day, Kristy-Lee. How are you today?
Well, thank you. How are you is a good way to start today's conversation, actually, because
It is.
October is Mental Health Month here in Australia. And we thought it might be a good time to broach this topic very carefully because being a small business owner can have an impact on your mental health.
Absolutely, and it's hard. Being a small business owner is hard sometimes.
Really hard. So before we get into our discussion, I'm going to put an extra disclaimer on today's episode. Neither Matt or I are mental health professionals, and we're not here to provide you mental health advice. We're purely here to explore the concept of mental wellness as a small business owner. If you need support, please call Lifeline 13 11 14, and we'll talk about some of the other support that's available today as well.
Yeah, and we'll talk about how we deal with running small businesses.
Absolutely. Yeah. Being a business owner is very challenging on your every aspect of your mental wellness, resilience, stress management, time kind of project management, all that brain space. It's a tough
Anxiety.
gig. Anxiety? Yes, absolutely. So it is, I don't think you would talk to a small business owner who doesn't say, "Oh, I've never been stressed. I've never found it, you know, challenging to run a business." So it can take a toll.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's different types of stress as a small business owner too. It's and I'll throw in I'll throw in guilt as well
Hmm.
as part of that. That in terms of um I mean, the stress, financial stress, I think for me, we're a little bit different in respect to that.
We some of us have different risk profiles when it
That's
comes to
right.
certain
So for
stress.
me, small business owner has always been about that financial security. So if
Hmm.
it's not, if at times that it's not there, that's when I feel the most stress as a small business owner in terms of that certainty. And that's different to being a salary and wage earner when you're chasing debtors or you're chasing new clients or so there's that financial aspect. I think probably a lot of our listeners will probably feel that at some point in time. It's that financial stress.
I think that's definitely one of the forms of stress that can really impact our mental health as business owners. So, can we pay the bills that are coming in? Can we put food on the table for the
Yep.
kids? And I think that shows up differently for different people. So for some people, that is, we'll just find a solution and keep going. For others, that can be really that's me. I was wondering why Matt's laughing. Like, don't worry
Let's
about
just
it.
let's
It'll
make
be
more money.
fine. Make more money. Um, but for others, it can be like crippling the impact of that pressure. And, particularly if, as the small business owner, you are the primary income earner in your
Yep.
family. And particularly, again, when you've got other responsibilities outside just yourself, whether that's children or other family members or other people that you care for,
Private school fees.
yeah, all of those. These are all things that might impact. And I think as well, as a small business owner, there are times, this is certainly my experience, where I can cope with anything, no problems. And there are other times where even the smallest thing can feel
Yep.
like it's really testing my mental endurance. So
Yep.
I guess if you're feeling that way as a small business owner, know that you're not alone. Because I know when you look around at other business owners, it always looks like everyone else has their together, like has their stuff together.
Yep.
And
Yep.
you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but it's
Well, we
often
don't
not the
post that,
case.
right? We don't post what's going on behind the scenes.
That's not on your Instagram, is it?
That's right.
It's never, "This is terrible. I hate it." I actually shared with a group of other business owners last week. They said, "Oh, so, what do you want to get out of today's call?" And I said, "Well, I'm having one of those weeks where I just want to close the entire business down and not look at
Yep.
it ever again." And
Yep.
three other people in the Zoom room said, "Oh my God, I'm having that week too." So,
Yep.
sometimes we feel like that. It's totally normal.
Well, I guess, as a small business owner, you don't want to be sending that message out to your potential audience that you feel that you want to show that everything's brilliant. You can service them from, 24 hours a day if needed, right? And I think,
No, we
but
might
that's
talk
the
about
we,
that.
so as a small business owner, I think we shy away from saying, you know what? oh, I really don't want to go down into that office on Monday.
Yeah.
And I think we all feel like that at times. And I think we talk about small and micro, probably a lot of our listeners probably are sitting in that space where they're completely isolated. So when you lose a major client that might make up half of
Oh, yeah.
your income.
Mm-hmm.
You're sitting there as a sole trader. It's only impacting you. Like you said, you've probably got kids going to school. You need to, all these other expenses, and suddenly there's nobody to turn to and go, hey, what do we do here? It's actually you that needs to come up with a solution.
Yeah, and I think, and this is where you and I are unique, Matt, in that we both run businesses, it's totally separate businesses, but we're both business owners. A lot of the time when you're a business owner, your partner and your family are not business owners.
Yep.
And it can be incredibly difficult for them to understand what you're going through, how you're feeling, the impact this might be having. And so they may not be great people to turn to for advice, but also may not really know how to best support you if you are feeling really overwhelmed or
Yep.
stressed, anxious, depressed, all the things you might be feeling, because they're not living that experience. And this is where sometimes, and I think you and I would both not necessarily recommend having two small businesses being your income earners for your
No.
household. It can get a bit stressful, but we get it. So we're fortunate in that sense. But I also know that we've both worked in businesses with partners before, and that's a whole different kettle of fish. And I know a lot of our listeners would be in that, situation where they're in business with their husband or wife or spouse,
Yep.
or
Family, sons as well.
yes, lots of family
Yep.
businesses. And that can create extra layers of stress because there's expectations are different from different family members. And
Well, I also think too is like if you're sitting there as a small business owner, you've already got the pressure. If your partner, say, works a salary job or doesn't work, and you're working in your business, and things go wrong, you've also got the pull, I suppose, that I talked about guilt before. So I know both of us often, feel like we need to always be on running our
yes,
businesses, and we do get that guilt of maybe not spending enough time with each other, or not spending enough time with the kids, or hobbies and things like that. And I think if you've got those two pressures going at once, where you might have lost a client, someone hasn't paid a bill, or whatever it is, and then you've also got the family saying, hey, you're always working as well. I think that would cause some anxiety too. And I'm sure there's a lot of listeners that are probably sitting in that situation as well.
yeah, look, I want to shout out to all the parent business owners out there, and I'll give a special mention to mums because the mum guilt, oh my God, it is horrendous. And I will share with the listeners because this might make them feel better. Both of my daughters went from hospital to my office, not home,
Yeah.
and they were in daycare at 6 weeks old, both of them. I think 10 weeks, the youngest one was. We were often in the daycare car park before daycare opened, and I was often the last person picking up my child at the end of a long daycare day. And did I feel guilt then? Yes, but also if I was home with one of them, I felt guilty that I wasn't
You weren't
wasn't
working as
wasn't
well.
looking after my team.
Look, I have a great memory of your youngest. Um, I don't think she could walk. She was just walking, but she was answering the reception's phone.
Yes, I have a video of my youngest with a headset on her head, sitting on my desk, saying, "Welcome to the footprint group. How can I help?" It's very cute, but also not ideal that she knew how to say that when she was such
And
a
I think
baby.
too, we've also had the situation here, since both of us have not worked in an office environment. We've been working from home for the last 5 or 6 years. So
Yeah.
our kids have actually been intertwined into that environment too. So if you're running a family business, more than likely you're dealing with that as well, having to try and manage the space between personal and business can be quite stressful at times.
Yeah, and look, yeah, we've had that challenge, and we've had teenagers tell us that it's a problem, and
Yep.
we, suggesting we relocate things in the house to make it a little bit more segregated because it's really tricky. And I think when COVID hit, particularly, I guess, in my business at that time, I was in a situation to really help people go through in workplaces because I work in the HR space, what was completely unprecedented. And I felt
Yep.
a real sense of obligation to do that because none of us knew what was going on, and I had that ability. But it did mean that because of where I then had to position my workspace, it was very much in the open plan area of the house, and our kids were home homeschooling, so it was all just a blur. But
Yep.
yeah, it's hard to get those boundaries in place when you're juggling not only the parent versus work situation, but I feel like it's constant guilt. And I think guilt is one of the biggest
Yep.
impactors on mental health for small business owners.
All right. So we've talked about what type of stress you can get as a small business owner. I want to touch on how can you tell when things are getting a bit too much?
I can tell you some of the symptoms that I now know in myself that I didn't know until I hit burnout about, when do I think I hit burnout? Probably about 12 years ago. And I remember at the time thinking I had everything completely under control. And thankfully, I had a great team. And one of my team members tapped me on the shoulder one day and said, "You are not okay." So
Yeah.
she could see it before I could. But what I know is I get very short tempered. um, I don't, I I have this feeling sort of bubble up in me that is overwhelm, which I now recognize. I didn't
Yeah.
recognize it then. So I can sense the lack of resilience. So usually I can go, yep, no worries, fix that, do that, make the decisions very quickly. If I can't make a decision, that's a sign that I'm not great. And when I hit that burnout stage and it was complete overwhelm, the one thing that I did put in place as a strategy that I still use today is an exercise routine. And that's not for everyone. I know some people
Yeah.
hate exercise, but Matt will attest to the fact that sometimes at 11 a.m. I'm out the door and I'm going for a walk or a run
Yep.
because I need 15 minutes to just reset and then I'm fine again. But 12 years ago, me would not in a million years
No.
have done that at
But
11 a.m.
that's us. We've spent a lot of time working through that guilt we talk about as being having to be available from 9 to 5 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
We've really worked through that over the last
Yeah.
10 years, and we know that we can service and we can run a successful business, dictating our own hours. We can set, and making sure that we're picking up the kids from school, making sure we're available when we need to be available, and also having a reasonably strict um, exercise routine, which we both do.
Mm.
And we work meetings around it. We're not what's the
We're
word
quite
I'm looking
protective
for?
of our time now, though.
So, yeah, exactly. And we're not apologetic either. We don't
No.
apologize to clients and say, well, look, I'm sorry, but I can't do 11 for this reason. We just say, well, I don't do 11. Like
Yeah. I don't
you
take
know,
meetings on
and
Fridays.
I think that's
End of
really
story.
important for small business owners to understand that is that um, and I always find for myself when I know that I'm sort of stressful or there's high anxieties, I get quite resentful towards towards customers in respect to my time, and
Yep.
that's when I know that I probably need to step back and go, you know what, it's probably not their fault. So it's a me thing, right? So I'm just angry that I'm supposed to be riding my bike now,
Yep.
but you're making me do this phone call, like.
Yep.
So it's a me problem, not a them problem. But I think we have done really well, and small business owners should be able to understand that it's not how many hours that you're putting in that's probably the reason why your customers come to you. It's because of the service you can provide, and
Yep.
it doesn't have to be on their terms.
No, and I think we're in a very privileged situation now because of all the hard work we've done over the last 10 years to know that that's a reality for us. But for many small business owners, the concept of even thinking about what we've
Yeah.
just said is absolutely not an option for them in the immediate sense. So some strategies that if you are completely overwhelmed and stressed and just need to get, some improvement there, bake in what you can do. Like, I
Yeah.
think that even if it's a tiny thing, like a 5 minute break, just to do some breathing exercises. In fact, we've got a breathwork expert coming to talk to us in a future
Yeah.
episode, but working in what works for you, figuring out what are the triggers and what are the things that help calm you down, and trying to just bake it in the short term
Yeah.
is probably a quick win that people can
And
get.
I think also normalizing it as well. And, it's about that if you're not doing well, you're not doing anything wrong. It's not a weakness.
Absolutely. It's normal.
The thing I do if, if I've had a tough phone call or a tough meeting or a situation, I just go and pat the dog. I sit out the front deck
Yeah.
and, give the dog a pat for 10 minutes and I'm fine. So that's a strategy that I use just to relax.
And I think the other thing that's super important, just generally as a strategy, is having a support network around you. For me, it absolutely has to be other business owners because
Yeah.
no one else gets it. And I think for most small business owners, you should have a support network that is
Yeah.
other business
Well,
owners
for
in your
me,
industry.
not so much. I feel like my support network are my friends.
Mm,
They can be colleagues, um, not necessarily from a networking perspective. I don't generally look for that support in that business sense.
yeah,
I do get a lot from friends in respect to that because like if you got the right group of friends, they understand what you do for a living. You can blurt stuff out. You can complain. They'll just they
yeah.
won't
I
give you
think
the answer. They'll just listen.
Yeah, I think there's different layers, I guess. And in fact, just a little spoiler alert, on next week's episode of the podcast, we are talking to Dr. Leanne Faulkner about the importance of connections and networks, not in the term of networking, but people around us. So stay tuned for that episode. It's a great conversation. But yeah, I think having people, maybe it's not even one group necessarily. It's people that you can go to.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is a family member. Like you and I both know if we called my brother and his wife, they'd listen to anything we had to complain
Yeah.
about, and they're not business owners. So
Well, they're helping us. They're helping us style the house at the moment.
yeah, because that's in her wheelhouse. But yeah, having some support, someone you can talk to is really important. And I'll throw it in again. If you don't feel like you've got someone you can talk to and you need support, please call Lifeline 13 11 14. But yeah, get some people around you that you can vent. A lot of my clients just vent to me.
Yeah.
It's not that they're not contacting me for strategy help. They just needed to vent about something.
Well, again, we're both in the services that we do provide sort of opens that door in respect to
Hmm.
our customers, clients being comfortable to talk about other things as well.
Of
Because
course.
we're talking, I help people with money, so that does open other conversations up in terms of particularly about retirement and things like that and travel and all that kind of stuff. So, I have some great conversations with my clients.
Mm. So I think definitely in terms of protecting your mental wellness, getting boundaries in place.
Oh
Your
yeah.
customers do not own you 24/7. No matter, I
Yep.
don't care what industry you're in, it's just not the way it should work.
Again, I'll say that, if there's one thing I would do the same again is focus on those boundaries because, it does create so much space for you to tackle issues when they come up as well. Like we have worked really hard on that, and I think that's the number one thing. I agree. Protecting your boundaries will make such a difference in respect to, how running a small business impacts your mental health for sure.
Yeah. And I'm not saying it's easier at set and forget, because we had this conversation yesterday, Matt, that the biggest challenge we both have is actually maintaining boundaries. So
Yep.
we set them and we're really good, and then we're really bad. And I'm in a process right now of restructuring my entire business for next year with better boundaries in mind. So it's a constant process. So boundaries, connections,
Yep.
and putting in place strategies that work for you. And exercise is one for us, not for
Yeah.
everyone.
It could be delegating, um, getting
Yeah.
a PA
Oh,
to
yeah.
to help. I think that yeah, exercise, taking care of yourself, I think is essential as a small business owner.
Yeah.
Because it is a
Yeah.
slippery slope there. If you're spending 60 hours a week on your small business, you're not going to eat right. You're probably going to drink too much.
Yep.
You're not going to exercise. So there's lots of things that you need to that will make you a better business owner, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like there's lots of threads here we could pull out and do future episodes
Yeah.
on, so we may do that. But it is Mental Health Month, so we did want to have a chat about the challenges and acknowledge that running a small business is tough. And there'll be times when you feel mentally totally resilient and other times where it will be challenging, and know that there are definitely support networks out there for you. We'll put Lifeline's details in the show notes, and there's strategies. And look, we would love to hear from you. If this is a challenge for you or this is something that you've dealt with and you've got strategies, we want to know your strategies.
Yeah, I'd love to think we're building a little community of listeners here that could help each other in this respect.
Oh, that would be fantastic. So yeah, if that's you, come and let us know on our socials, the Australian Small Business Show on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You can find both Matt and I on LinkedIn at any time. Well, you can probably find Matt there more than me because I don't love that either. Or subscribe to our newsletter over on the australiansmallbusinessshow.com.au.
Awesome.
And if you don't want to comment publicly, send us a DM.
Yeah,
We are
yeah,
totally
absolutely
up for that.
Well, you can find both of our contact details on the website, australiansmallbusinessshow.com.au.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks, Matt. Good chat.
Thanks, Kristy.